Sorry, we're just waiting to get the live stream started, so we'll be starting in a few moments. All right. Good morning. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to turn it over to the Madam Clerk. If you could provide an overview of the meeting today.
Good morning. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available to the public for playback on our website in accordance with Council Policy 3.12. Committee of the Whole is the initial venue for council review of information to ensure that council can debate and vote on issues at a future council meeting. No voting takes place on bylaws or resolutions during Committee of the Whole. This meeting is being conducted through the city's One Meeting platform, which will allow members wishing to speak to be placed in a speaker queue and allow for the electronic capture of member votes and decisions to send an item to council for debate at a future regular council meeting, or to send an item back to staff for more information or clarification. Members of council are reminded that in order to be placed in the speaker queue, you must click on the blue Request to Speak button for the item during which you would like to speak. For members of the public who would like to speak during community forum, please register as a speaker by clicking on the microphone icon in the One Meeting portal. The first item on the agenda is adoption of minutes.
Okay, so if I could get a mover for adoption of the minutes of October 18th, 2022, please. Mover and seconder. I believe we're doing it electronically. I'm just looking to the clerk right now. Okay. Yeah, no worries. Bless you.
Thank you.
For those members in the audience, we have a new software program, so we're still working through a few of the bugs with it. So thank you for your patience. Okay, so could I have somebody move, show of hands, moved by Mayor Rumi, seconded by Councillor Carreras. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. And now I'm going to, the next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Maple Ridge Climate Hub. So I'm going to welcome Ms. Grayson up to the podium.
So I have to say, I'm not really sure how the slides are going to be.
And you're going to have to speak directly into the microphone. Okay. Thank you. Now is presenter in control of the PowerPoint?
And
Okay.
then that advances and then, okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Mayor Rumi, Madam Chair, members of council and city staff, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Kirk Grayson and I'm with the Maple Ridge Climate Hub. At this year's gathering of nations at COP27, in his opening remarks, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, "We are in the fight of our lives and we are losing. Greenhouse gas emissions keep growing. Global temperatures keep rising, and our planet is fast approaching tipping points that will make climate chaos irreversible." But today, I want to share some good news with you about the appetite residents of Maple Ridge have for making the changes we know are urgently needed. And I'll start by jumping back to a presentation that the Climate Hub made in 2020. We were asking council to set targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions to align with the targets recommended by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And this is one of the images we used in that presentation. It's a Metro Vancouver infographic describing what we would experience if the average global temperature went up past 1.5 degrees centigrade. At that time, with the current rate of emissions, it was predicted that we would reach 1.5 degrees around the year 2040. And we could then expect to be experiencing deteriorating air quality, critical water shortages, increased wildfires, higher electricity demands to cool buildings, extreme rainfall events and flooding, damaged ecosystems, and failure of local species such as salmon, and all of the associated physical and mental health effects. But that was wrong. It didn't take anywhere near that long for the world and us right here in BC to begin experiencing these frightening extremes. In 2021, we had the severe and prolonged heat dome event, resulting in 557 deaths in BC. The town of Lytton recorded 48.6 degrees on June 29th. The heat caused extreme wildfires, burning Lytton to the ground and causing smoke pollution all over the province and beyond for weeks. The deforestation caused by the fires also likely contributed to the horrific slides we experienced that November from the atmospheric river events that caused so much flooding and destruction. And just this fall, after a prolonged spell of unusually warm, dry weather, the Sunshine Coast declared a state of emergency, warning that they only had enough drinking water to last 2 weeks, while rivers dried up and thousands of salmon died. So everything we used to predict would be happening by 2040 is happening right now. And we know that what is causing global warming is carbon dioxide emissions from a variety of sources, pretty well all caused by human activity. This is another Metro Vancouver infographic that shows us where the biggest sources of emissions come from across the region, with the lion's share coming from vehicles and buildings. So those are the areas we need to focus our efforts on. And to quote Antonio Guterres again, the global climate fight will be won or lost in this crucial decade on our watch. Katharine Hayhoe is a Canadian atmospheric scientist who has won awards for communicating the science, the urgency, and the solutions for combating climate change. Katharine says that the most important thing we can do to fight climate change is to talk about it, to help people see how fighting climate change aligns to their values. And we've taken her message to heart, and we've been doing a lot of talking about climate change lately. You may have noticed. During the election, we prepared a package of detailed recommendations for candidates and a similar package for voters so they could be informed throughout the election. We had conversations with candidates and with voters at various events. All across the world, there are many examples of exciting solutions and cities that are leading the way on climate action. But our recommendations were all based on plans and actions from communities far closer to home. Communities like Vancouver, Victoria, Nanaimo, Kamloops, Langley Township, New Westminster, North Vancouver, the list goes on. Some are large, some are small, and all created plans that are tailored for their community. New Westminster created a budgeting framework that prioritizes climate in all of their work plans. The City of Vancouver committed to a long-range plan for maximum impact, and while they were doing the strategic planning, they carried on with short-term actions they knew would be effective. Saanich used a wonderful set of tools and resources to build consensus for the steps they're taking. And they provide an interactive online toolkit to help residents learn about the local sources of CO2 emissions and where their personal actions can have the greatest impact. And the township of Langley zeroed in on 5 big moves with more than 140 actions to reach their targets. But we weren't done talking, or in this case, listening, when the election was over. And while it was still fresh in people's minds, we prepared a survey to gauge the approval level for each of the recommendations we had made during the election. We asked 2 main questions, but with multiple choice and open text answers available. We shared the survey through our newsletter and informally on social media. With zero budget, we were pleased that 76 respondents took the survey, and here's what we learned. We wanted to know whether we were hearing from a reasonable cross-section of Maple Ridge residents, so we asked them what communities they felt part of. People identified with their neighbors, with environmental groups. Some were seniors, youth, educators, artists. Some ran businesses, some were involved with service groups, and some were health professionals. And next, we asked what should be included in the city's climate action plan. When asked what they value most about Maple Ridge, people often respond that it's the natural environment that matters most to them. So it's no surprise that evaluating, protecting, and managing our natural assets had the strongest response. People also wanted the city to make climate impacts part of all city processes and decisions, like New Westminster. They recognize the importance of energy retrofits in existing buildings, and they advocate requiring net zero construction methods for new construction. They look to the city to provide resources to encourage and sustain personal efforts like Saanich has done. And they want to see Maple Ridge become a hub for green businesses like Squamish. And many expect the city to accelerate the switch to sustainable transportation. Last, we explained that while some things will take some time to plan, other actions could be taken right away, and we asked them which ones they wanted to see. And I'm stalled. There we go. Between 60 and 40% prioritized each of these recommendations, including adopting the BC Energy Step Code to reduce emissions from construction and heating and cooling of buildings, creating a Climate Action Advisory Committee to oversee development of a climate action plan for the city, requiring all new buildings to provide electric charging infrastructure that is plug-in ready, requiring all new buildings to provide secure parking for bicycles and e-bikes, implementing the recommendations of the recent report in the building department to streamline the processes for retrofits and lower emission buildings, and accelerating implementation of the active transportation recommendations in the city's upcoming strategic transportation plan, prioritizing gaps in pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, and requiring all new housing to install zero-emission heat sources rather than fossil fuel furnaces. And one person even added hot water heaters and stoves as well. So you'll see that many of these actions complement the big picture planning. So I won't touch on every aspect listed here, but I'll be happy to provide a more detailed summary of the survey findings. So what should we take from the survey? It's clear that Maple Ridge residents are ready to support the changes that are needed to dramatically reduce emissions in this decade. Solutions have been implemented or are being tested in many other BC communities already. And although approval is already strong for many of these recommendations, a solid engagement strategy will be needed to ensure the actions selected by the city align with citizens' values, like our love for the beautiful natural environment that surrounds us. Now, Guterres concluded his remarks at COP27 by saying, "We are on the highway to climate hell with our foot still on the accelerator. Human activity is the cause of the problem, so human action must be the solution." But our final words today belong to the school kids here in Maple Ridge who came to join the school strike for climate at City Hall in 2019. Before COVID, before the heat dome, the atmospheric river, or the war in Ukraine, they wrote these messages to the politicians. If you don't change, others won't. Time is running out. What are you going to do? Change has to start now. A future mayor wrote, "Begin investing in cleaner sources of energy and eco-friendly technology right now, and we will soon see the benefits, including in our economy." And simply help us. So thank you very much for your time today. There's a lot to do and the clock is ticking. We wish you all health, strength, and wisdom over the next 4 years.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm now going to turn it over to anyone on council that has any questions. And we're using our electronic hands for that. Yeah. Councillor Schiller, I don't see the hands up, so.
Can you please push the request to speak button?
I don't see the request to speak button. Sorry, Tracy. I'm under actions. Speakers. Yep.
There we go. All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kirk, for sharing that information with us and for sharing the information that Climate Hub has been busy gathering over the last few years. I wanted to know, in the opinion of Climate Hub, sort of what you think would be the best steps that we could take as we get started on this work. Maybe if there is one sort of bigger picture idea and one like smaller, simpler thing, I would just be interested in hearing your opinion on that.
I think, creating that action plan is sort of paramount. So a lot of communities have done that. I know the Community Energy Association, there's funding through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, flows from the federal government for that planning. So creating that really big picture plan would be a really important sort of global first step. As far as sort of immediate steps go, probably creating that advisory committee and bringing together some expertise from the community and helping to marshal that plan forward. I think those would be a couple of things. Certainly there are a number of those quick start steps. The city is already underway with a strategic transportation plan as an example. There's lots of really good stuff in there about sustainable transportation. Prioritizing the walking and cycling infrastructure would be a great win. And I think really would have some good advocates in the community. But I think that, it was really interesting to see what the priorities were that people came back with. And that sort of key piece that really stood out to me, the quick wins at the top were preserving the natural environment. I know that the city is implementing a green infrastructure strategy. And so that may be an opportunity also to sort of bring some of those things forward that the city is really, or at least residents of the city are really keen to see and support.
Great. Thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing more from staff on this early in the new year. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And I do not see any other speakers. So Mayor Rumi, I'm going to have to go with you because I don't see it here. I've got 3 screens and so I'm clicked on speakers. I'm on the
all we want for Christmas is a good working system.
How did that happen? Okay. All right. Anyways, Mayor Rumi, well, I'll
Thank you for coming in and presenting to us today. I do have a couple of questions on the subject of the Climate Advisory Committee. I'd like your thoughts on what that would entail. Currently, we have an environmental committee.
Mm-hmm.
How would you see them operating differently, or would you see them amalgamating? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the opportunity for amalgamation is an interesting one, but one of the earliest conversations that I had on this topic with a member of council was with Councillor Duick. And at that time, we were proposing that we brought the resolution to council to set targets that aligned with the IPCC report. And we had the discussion around, well, is this appropriate to bring to the Environmental Advisory Committee? And my view on that is not inappropriate, but climate action has to take place at all levels and in all departments. So you've got, it's very important to look at housing, land use, transportation, economic development, all of those things. So those are not really the purview of the Environmental Advisory Committee per se. So I would see a more sort of holistic committee that, that brought in voices from across the community.
Thank you. The second thing is on your list, you had declaring a climate emergency.
Mm-hmm.
What would we get out of that? What would you hope to gain out of that?
That's a very good question. I included declare a climate emergency on the survey because we have been hearing over the years from people that was something that they were really interested in. Certainly many, if not most of the communities that I referenced in the presentation have done that. That was a first step. And the next step was creating a plan to, meet the urgency that a climate emergency suggests. However, again, in the conversation that I had with Councillor Duick a few years ago, in my view, declaring an emergency is it's a signal, and it's a good one. But what we heard in the survey was that's not the most important thing that people are looking for. So if it's something that council feels strongly that they want to sort of lead with that step, that would be fine. But what's really important is the planning and the actions.
Well, that's the challenge, right? Because you can come out and use the words, it's symbolic.
Yeah.
But what are we hoping to accomplish if you actually declare that? And that's the question that we have to consider, obviously, right? So through the chair to Mr. Hartman, we have been going through our strategic planning sessions. And there anything that you can add to this process of when we're talking about all these challenges that are given to us and how they can be woven into our strategic path forward?
Through the chair to Mayor Rumi, that's exactly where my head is at with respect to the discussions that council's been having over the last 3 weeks with strategic planning. A lot of what's been identified by Ms. Grayson's presentation was discussed during strategic planning. And so part of that now is putting those pieces together. That document will be coming draft back to council towards the end of January. And that'll form part of the discussion with our senior leadership team and our business planning, as well as a work planning process for 2023. So my suggestion is to leave this with staff as we work through the processes with council. There's going to be further conversations with this, but I think a lot of what has been captured and presented in the presentation was discussed during our 3 days of workshopping, and we'll be bringing some further information back early in the new year.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do not see any more speakers. Okay, so he's
for the audience to have any comment.
So during committee of the whole, we don't allow the audience to participate. At the end of committee of the whole, we do have a community forum, so you can ask questions at that time. Okay. And Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my apologies to both you and to Ms. Grayson and everyone in the room for my technical difficulties that took me away from most of the presentation. Nevertheless, if I may, just real quick, welcome the Climate Hub and thank them for the presentation that they did. Unfortunately, I'll have to go back and watch the tape.
I can send it to you too.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I do not believe I have any further speakers. I'm waiting to get logged back into Zoom because I got kicked out. So. All right. So thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation as always, and look forward to further dialogue with yourself and Climate Action Hub.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to move on to 4.1. There we go. I'm back. So Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you for 4.1.
The next item on the agenda is item 4.1, application 2022-244-AL for 22351 144th Avenue, non-farm use application. Staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Morning. Nothing seems, oh.
Are you can't, oh, you're waiting for the presentation to
I
be
am,
put up?
yeah.
Okay,
Okay, here we go.
there we go.
Yes, the application information, existing OCP is agricultural and rural residential. And of course, the property is in the ALR. The existing zoning is A2 and P3. Total site area is just over 72 acres. And the existing use and proposed use is children's camp and retreat center. And the subject map showing the subject property outlined in red. The official community plan context map showing the majority of the property is designated agricultural in the OCP and of course located in the LR. Neighborhood plan context map showing the subject property surrounded by a combination of agricultural and residential uses, as well as some vacant lands. And the non-farm use application proposal is to permit a covered children's play structure, a miniature golf course, high ropes course, zip line, some additional staff housing, and a covered outdoor dining area as an extension to the existing lodge. The lodge extension is also proposing a couple of other uses, including some meeting space, additional washrooms, and a medical center. The application is also proposing to import gravel fill to support the proposed structures. And should council and the ALC support this application, a site-specific text amendment will be required to align the proposed uses under the zoning bylaw. It is noted that this would be a separate council approval process. And the proposed site plan, the hatched markings with the red arrows are the proposed structures. And these are in addition to the existing buildings and the other uses that were approved as part of a previous ALC application. And the recommendation before you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So could I have a mover to move this forward to the next council meeting? And a seconder, but we're doing it electronically. No, so I'm asking for a motion. So at committee of the whole, we move the motion and second it before we open it for discussion or for questions, pardon me. So waiting for the electronic voting here. Okay, so. Okay. All right, so with that, does anyone wish to ask any questions on this particular application? Okay, old school, Mayor Rumi.
Thank you for your presentation. When you look at the ALR, is that better? Okay, now you can hear me. When we look at the use for the ALR and the purpose of this, and then you look at where the Timberline Ranch is, have we or are we considering the accessibility to be able to get into that area? Because there's a few things going on there, correct?
Yep. Can you sort of identify what other things you have that you think are going on?
Well, if you're attracting more people to the area,
Right.
I'm wondering about the accessibility. Is it going to, I mean, this sounds like a really nice piece that we can add. What's it going to do to the traffic in and out? Is that going to pose an impact?
Well, I believe the applicant is in the audience, and I would ask that maybe they would be able to speak to some of the traffic and the parking constraints, access in and out of the site.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. If you could please share your name.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Craig Douglas, the
you.
Executive Director at Timberline Ranch since 2005. Thanks
Okay.
for having us and considering our application. We're not actually looking to increase traffic considerably or at all. Mainly what we're trying to do is serve the current customers better. There could be more use. We have some room for expanded use, say in November, December, January, February, when we're not as busy. Having a covered play area, for instance, we believe we'd be able to attract more guest groups in the lower seasons. A lot of these uses would be for the campers that we're having coming already. We have reached the limit of what we believe we want in terms of full camps for the summer, and that's about 160 campers. And so we're looking to serve them better, but not increase that number.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're going to raise our real hands if anybody else has any questions.
Okay.
Not seeing any. So we're ready for the vote. So all in favor of moving this forward to the council meeting of December the 13th? All in
Oh, there
favor?
it is. Oh, there it is. Yay.
Okay, if you can vote, that would be great. Okay. I'm not sure. Okay. Counselor Youssef, are you able to vote electronically? Okay. I have to look at his photo. It's not on here. Okay. All right, so Counselor Youssef is not online, so all in favor, we're in favor. Looks like it passes, nobody's opposed. All right, thank you. And now item number 4.2, Madam Clerk.
The next item on the agenda is item 4.2, application 2022-389 AL for 23580 Jim Robson Way, non-farm use application. Staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
Me
Hello again.
Yep. All right, another non-farm use application. The application information, existing OCP is Park and it is located in the LR. Existing zoning is CD 488 and this is a comprehensive development zone. The total site area is 60 acres and the existing use is Planet Ice, Maple Ridge and Golden Ears Winter Club, the Maple Ridge Search and Rescue Building, Albion Fairgrounds, and the Albion Sports Complex. The proposed uses are the same with the addition of a fourth ice sheet. And the subject property highlighted with the red border. And the official community plan context map showing the property as park in the ALR within the OCP. Neighborhood plan context map showing the property surrounded by a combination of uses, including agricultural and residential, another park, and some vacant land. The non-farm use application proposal is to permit a fourth ice sheet at the Planet Ice Maple Ridge Arena Complex. A previous non-farm use application approved back in 1995 had permitted the arena complex to a maximum buildable area of 10,000 square meters. The current facility was not built out to this maximum and instead has a footprint of just over 8,500 square meters and 3 ice sheets. The proposed additional ice sheet will increase the arena complex to approximately 11,800 square meters. And this exceeds the previously approved amount of 10,000 square meters, hence the need for a new non-farm use application. The Planet Ice facility is the city's only arena complex. The additional ice sheet will allow for more efficient operations and programming for both the recreational and special event activities. And the existing parking provides sufficient number of parking stalls to meet the requirements of the off-street parking and loading bylaw for the proposed use. And the previously approved ALC application site plan, identifying that up to 10,000 square meters of buildable area is supported. And the proposed expansion site plan showing the current facility size of just over 8,500 square meters. The proposed expansion is 3,216 square meters, taking the total arena complex to just around 11,800 square meters. It is noted that the proposed plan is conceptual and a more detailed design will be complete should the application be supported. And the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So are we going to try the electronic move this application to next council meeting? And a seconder. So it's moved by Councillor Dozy, seconded by Mayor Rumi. Now we're going to, if anyone has any questions. Councillor Carreras.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the parking piece. First of all, I think this is great. A fourth sheet of ice is needed, but it is taking a big chunk of the parking, and it does look like you're looking at the gravel parking lot is the overflow to replace that. But of course, there's the flooding issues there, so you have to look at the pavement of that. If there's an event in the barns there and an event at Planet Ice, would there still be enough parking? Because as we go into the summer, there is dual use there.
Right. Yeah, I believe the total with the addition of the new ice sheet is about 465 parking spaces with using that gravel parking lot, which would eventually be paved as part of this proposal. The total area with the sports complex as well, I think there's about 1,500 parking spaces. So quite significant. So that's kind of where we're at with the total number of parking that would be available, you know, should there be special events coinciding with other uses within the facility as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I don't see anyone else, so that's correct. Nobody else looking to speak.
I believe.
Oh, and now Councillor Youssef is back on. Okay, Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Usually I don't have this many technical difficulties, but it seems that the system doesn't like me today. Through you to staff, how quickly can we expect the response from the ALC on this application?
Yes, they say it depends, but usually we've been sort of getting about a 6-month turnaround time once we get the application approved through council to the ALC. That's a bit of a ballpark, but that's kind of roughly the timeline that it's been with previous ALC applications.
Thank you for that. And follow-on question through the chair to staff. Once we have that approval, how quickly would we be able to proceed with putting together the ice sheet ultimately?
Actually, park staff are in attendance and maybe they could speak to that question for you.
Good morning, through the chair to Councillor Youssef's question. So as Adam Rio just touched upon, this application is based on conceptual design plans. So as this application moves forward to the ALC, we will also be looking to advance the detailed design and covering off of some of the engineering requirements on the site. To the specific question of how quickly or what the time frame is for development. Typically about a year for design and further stakeholder engagement, and probably another year and a bit for tendering and construction.
Thank you for that. And if I may, through the chair, just to speculate, so we'd be looking at delivering this and cutting the proverbial ribbon, if you will, in 2024, third quarter, possibly?
So 2.5 years from now, if that's aligns close enough.
Thank you for that. Lastly, through the chair to staff, understanding that we're currently awaiting the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, how does this piece fit in? And just for general public as well as my own benefit, how did we manage to get this piece out and up and running prior to having the full master plan in front of us?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Youssef's question, certainly a couple of council members, yourself included, will recall that this particular initiative is an initiative of the previous council, and I don't want to steal the thunder of our draft master plan, but this is in alignment with what you will be seeing.
Thank you very much. And that was exactly my hope. And I just wanted to clarify that again for the general public as well as for myself as to why we are where we are today. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. And I am not seeing any other speakers. Is that correct?
No, Councillor Dose.
Okay, so why is it not showing up here? I'm on that.
I'm trying. My system is just under speakers.
Okay. So it's not that,
Okay, so request to speak. Sorry.
okay.
It looks like I'm on now.
There you are, Counselor Dozie.
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair, calling up speakers. Just wanted to say that Councillor Yusuf actually took the word out of my mouth, because I was excited when I read this, and that was practically one of the major reasons why I went ahead to support that we discuss it and move the motion. But I still want to say that the excitement is there.
Can I just clarify something? Sorry to interrupt you. This is opportunity for questions of clarification, comments,
yes.
and how we're voting is next Tuesday.
Yes, I am actually okay. My question again will still be that, or my statement or comment, if you want to call it, is that I guess if the proponents of this particular project will work harder to bring it up, because I'm aware that the BC game is around the corner. I know it may be too late for it, but hey, there is no harm in asking. If it could be expedited to fall within that big project we have, I think it would be a big show for Maple Ridge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No response? Okay. All right, so I am not seeing any other speakers. So we're going to call for the vote to move it forward to next council meeting. And Councillor Yusuf, if you could do a thumbs up. Okay, he's got his green card, all the better. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, 4.3.
The next item on the agenda is item 4.3, application 2022-339-RZ for 21668 and 21680 Dewdney Trunk Road, RS1 to RM2. And staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
Okay. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I didn't hear. Sorry. Do you want me to?
Yes, please. Sorry.
So the application before you is the existing OCP is an urban residential on a major corridor residential. The proposed OCP is transit corridor multifamily under the Lougheed Transit Corridor Concept Plan. The existing zoning is RS1, single detached residential. The proposed use is RM2, medium density apartment residential. The total site area is 0.18 hectares or approximately 0.46 of an acre. The proposed unit count is 49 market apartment units. And before you is the subject properties on Dewdney Trunk Road between 216th and Hall Street. This gives you the official community plan context map, identifying the property on the urban residential major corridor. The neighborhood plan context showing the property on Dewdney Trunk Road. The development proposal is to rezone to RM2 medium density apartment residential to permit the future construction of a 6-story apartment building with approximately 49 market apartment units. The proposed multifamily land use is in compliance with the urban residential major corridor designation in the OCP. The proposed 6-story building is not supported by the current OCP designation. However, it is supported by the council endorsed Lougheed Transit Concept Plan. The vehicle access to the building is proposed off of a new rear lane, temporary access until will be required of Dewdney Trunk Road. And the proposal will include underground parking to facilitate the 49 units. This gives you the proposed site plan showing the two-way in and out off of Dewdney Trunk Road, and then the future access off of the southern rear off of a lane when the properties to the east and west develop. And the recommendations are before you on the slide.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So is the applicant, do you know if the applicant is online or wishing to?
The applicant advised that the team would be online and available for comments.
For any questions? Okay, thank you. So could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Carreras, seconded by Councillor Schiller. And any questions from council? I see Councillor Youssef, so I'll go to you first, Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you to staff, if I understand correctly, we tried to mitigate having commercial on the bottom on the Lougheed corridor in order to have it remain that main thoroughfare. Is this the same concept that we'd be looking at here, especially in light of this development coming in with access through the laneway, which then at least would enable any sort of commercial space to function quite well on the bottom until more permanent access to the building would be required. So through you to staff, my question is ultimately, have we had discussions with the applicant about the possibility of having commercial on the bottom of this building? And if so, where would we be able to find that space, and would it fit within our policies? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Youssef, the discussions with the proponent has not been to include commercial on the ground floor. At this time, the design of the building has not been reviewed in that detail to facilitate commercial. And currently, the concept is for the Lougheed is not to facilitate the commercial on the ground floor.
Thank you. Councillor Youssef, do you have any further questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was my question.
Great, thank you. And now I'll recognize Councillor Carreras.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, and sorry, I wrote them down and then my iPad glitched and they've disappeared. So they're a little disjointed. I apologize. Okay, so a couple of questions because, of course, new. So I didn't live through the Lougheed Transit Corridor area concept plan. But my understanding from this package is that the 6 levels isn't currently, we need to rezone for the 6 levels.
Through the chair, within the current OCP designation, which is the urban residential major corridor, doesn't support 6 stories under the OCP designation, but the proposed OCP designation does support 6 stories. And within our, we're rezoning the property to RM2, which would facilitate the 6 stories.
Okay. And during our consultation, I was quickly looking through the Lougheed Transit Corridor area plan, sort of the feedback to see what the interest was, because there's nothing 6 stories anywhere around this 216 area. And there's a big hub around 203, it looks like. And then, of course, the downtown core. Was there any feedback? There was, I just couldn't see anything in there around the 6 story and was there anything from the community around interest of going up 6 stories?
Through the chair, to Councillor, sorry, I'm
Carreras.
Carreras.
Yes, that's okay.
I was not part of the Lougheed Corridor public engagement process, and I would refer to the Director of Planning with respect to that.
Mr. Goddard.
Thank you. A number of years were spent developing the Lougheed Corridor study to where it is now. It came to council, last council, and was asked to be returned with some fine tuning being done. So it's still only at first reading, although council has always agreed to allow applications to proceed with that plan moving forward as we normally do. So the plan would allow on a major corridor such as Dewdney Trunk apartments, whether it's 5 or 6 stories. I think it's something we'll still determine as we move the application forward. I think the application is now for 6 stories, but we do have the fit is an important component, as you've mentioned, Counselor, and how it fits with the neighborhood, particularly to the south. So we'll do a full assessment of the application and the concept when we get more information, if council wishes to grant it first reading, which is really only a land use question for you to consider. Are you entertaining apartments here? Would you like townhouses or single family? But apartment is appropriate given the density that we would expect on both various points of Lougheed and Dudney Trunk. Thank you.
Does that help you?
Yeah. I think I'm good for now. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And okay, Mayor Rumi. I'm not seeing it there, but
I can't. No, it's stuck. It's frozen. Frozen. I tried that before. I just have a very quick question, and it's more of a terminology. When we're talking about apartments, are we talking about rentals or are we talking about actual condos for sale? I just need a clarification on that.
okay,
Through the chair to Mayor Rumi, with these, the condos, apartments can be interchangeable, the terminology. They're the same type of units. These ones, condos or apartments, are market. They're not, they can be for sale or they can be rented. So, and that is, does that explain?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that because when we talk about rentals, right, that's something that is important to us. So where this goes afterwards, it's just one of those questions that will come up. So I just wanted clarification on
and
that.
Mr.
Thank you.
Goddard has some further
Sure.
comments to make.
When we have apartment applications before you, and we know they're purpose-built rentals, we will certainly tell you that. I think if they aren't, it's a market project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Schiller.
Thank you. My question has been asked.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not seeing any further electronic hands. I'm not seeing any real hands up. So it's a challenging meeting today. So we're going to vote on moving this forward. And Councillor Youssef is in favor. I see that. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So we're moving on to 4.4.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 4.4, application 2021-104 RZ for 22337 St. Anne Avenue, RS1 to RM2. Staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
All right. Thank you.
So the application before you, the existing OCP is Port Haney multifamily, commercial and mixed use. The proposed is just to do an amendment to the Port Haney multifamily, commercial mixed use, to do a text amendment to facilitate a 6-story structure. The existing zoning is RS1, single detached residential. The proposed zoning is RM2, ground oriented residential infill. The total site area is 806 meters square, approximately 8,675 square feet. The total proposed is 20 market apartment units. So they could be rental or they could be for sale. This is the subject property within the on the north side of St. Anne Avenue. This is the official community plan context map showing the property within the Port Haney area. The neighborhood plan context showing the subject property between two existing multifamily buildings. The development proposal is to rezone to RM2 to permit the future construction of a 5-story apartment building with 20 market residential units. The proposed development is supported within the existing land use designation in the OCP. As I mentioned before, an OCP amendment is required to permit a 5-story building. The applicant is proposing a density bonus contribution of $78,353 to increase the floor space ratio, the FSR, from 1.8 FSR to 2.5 SR. The proposed parking includes 23 stalls within a 1.5 levels of underground parking due to the grade difference from the lane to St. Anne Street. 34 of their stalls are required by the off-street parking and loading bylaw. A cash in lieu payment of $220,000 is proposed in lieu of 11 spaces. The applicant is subject to a community amenity contribution program at a rate of $4,100 per unit for an estimated total of $82,000, or such rate applicable at time of third reading of this application. This is the preliminary site plan showing the access to the underground parkade at the rear off of the lane, and the access to the structure, the component of the residential off of St. Anne's Avenue. This is the proposed renderings that have gone through the advisory design panel, showing the subject front, rear, and side facing of the building. And the property is quite constrained between the two existing buildings on side. And this is giving you a concept of the landscaping on the ground, as well as the rooftop does have a significant amenity component to it, providing a rooftop area for the residents. And in order to facilitate the building, there are some variances proposed for the building before you. Oops, it will not move. It has determined there we go. And the recommendations from staff are before you and in your report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, is the applicant wanting to make a presentation or just available for questions?
The applicant is available online as well as the architect.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm looking for a motion to move it forward. So Councillor Youssef and a seconder, please. Councillor Schiller. And any questions? Going to go to Councillor Carreras first.
Thank you. There was one recommendation in there I don't quite understand. It was around FSR. So I think it's number 10 under 7. The contribution of $78,000. I'm just curious. I don't understand.
Through the chair to Councillor Carreras, within our zoning bylaw under the RM2 component, there's a density bonus provision that if the development meets specific standards, they can get a density. And one of those is a cash payment. In order to increase your density from the 1.8 up to the maximum of 2.5, you can do a portion of it in payment to the city. So you, as a density bonus.
Okay, so density is in more apartments in one space.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question about that. And I don't know how far I can go into questions because I'm still learning my way around the processes. A couple of things. One on parking. Can I ask a question around parking?
Absolutely.
Okay. It looks like we're 11 stalls short. Is that what I get from the application? I know there is some street parking, but in the reduction, are we looking at increasing other forms of parking in this at all, like bicycle parking to help assist with people only being able to have one car?
We haven't looked at increasing the bicycle parking. Within the report, staff has outlined that we recommend that they pay to the city's parking fund the $220,000 for the reduction.
Okay. And then the other question I have is, has there been any discussion so far around like a possibility of a third, like doing a 3 bedrooms? I know they're trying to look for more, but families are moving into apartments and condos, and 3 bedrooms are sought after and needed in the community.
Through the chair, we have discussed that has been an ongoing want of the city for 3-bedroom apartments with the proponent. And given that they thought it was not, and they are online so they can provide opportunity, that it did create some financial constraints on the project.
Okay. Yeah, because this one's a lot of 1-bedroom and den, which really limits the ability for families and even couples.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we could ask the applicant if they want to respond to your question. If you're online, if you could raise your hand, please, so I can acknowledge you.
How do I read?
Okay, and if you could turn your video on, please. Folks, I think it's Emily Carn.
Hello, hi. So let me just get my video on here. Hi, myself, Emily Kearns, and Mark Ankerman is here with me. We're principals at Ankerman Associate Architects in South Surrey. Yeah, so currently we have a combination of 1 bed, 1 bed plus den, and 2-bed units. There may be the possibility to look at some of our larger 2-bedroom units and potentially making it a 3-bed unit. We can certainly do that design exercise. We are kind of limited in the width of the units to be able to provide a 3rd bedroom with kind of windows at the front, but we could look to an option where a bedroom is provided towards the rear of the unit. That would be an option. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Councillor Carreras, do you have any further questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And I'm not sure who was first, Councillor Youssef or Mayor Rumi. So, okay. Now, why am I not seeing Councillor Schiller? Okay. There you are now. I see you now. Okay. All right. So let's go to Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Chair. Just a little clarification, please. You explained that providing a cash payment is something that can allow a developer to have increased density in their project. Can you just explain to me what that money is used for by the city?
Through the chair to Councillor Schiller, it is going into our Mr. Goddard or
so either Mr. Goddard or Mr. Thompson.
Social Housing Fund, I believe, isn't it? That's correct. Our social housing fund is where it would go in, giving council eventually the ability to use that money to develop their own project or buy more land or things like that.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and I just need a little bit of clarification on the process here in terms of what we're moving forward. So I understand on the one hand, it's a land use decision. You know, by choosing to move this forward, are we indicating that we support something like the height variance specifically, or are we just indicating that we support the concept of it being developed?
Through the chair to Councillor Schiller, at this point, what you are supporting is moving the application on the land use forward. And if you have any comments that you would like to express to the proponent, if you would not be supportive of the OCP amendment or any components of the proposal, it would be the form to advise staff that and the proponent that may be something that you would have concerns about moving forward.
Thank you. In this case, it is just more of a general question about the process. Thank you. I'm good.
Thank you. And now Mayor Rumi.
Thank you very much. Similar along the lines of Councillor Carreras, we talk about parking and the bike storage. But is there any consideration in our process about electric vehicle charging stations in underneath ground? Because that's a challenge that we're seeing with a lot of new places that don't necessarily put them in. Is this something that can be considered?
Through the chair to Councillor Rumi, within our, there is a requirement for the buildings to be pre-conduit to facilitate electric charging. But I think it would provide an opportunity now for the proponent to advise us if they had looked at that as part of their concept.
Okay, so Emily and Mark, if you could answer that question, that would be appreciated.
Sure, happy to. So again, Emily Kearns, Mark Ankerman, architects for the project. Yeah, we're used to seeing this requirement in other municipalities, so it's certainly something we could explore. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and is that it for you, Mayor Rumi? Okay, and now I'll go to Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do apologize if I'm beleaguering the point of the parking, but I wanted to ask through you to staff, with the neighborhood that we're familiar with and having seen other buildings that have gone up in that very same area that are predominantly transit oriented, understandably that they're not going to need as many parking stalls as possible. My question is to do with the neighborhood. How much pressure do we expect to be on the neighborhood for that street parking? And then of course, to be able to access other transit means, as the questions were asked about various types of parking, bicycle storage or otherwise.
Through the chair to Councillor Youssef, staff have not done a study of the off-street parking availability and the demand that this proposal could put on the off-street parking in the area. And given the
Mr. Goddard.
Given the bedroom configuration of 1 and 2 bedrooms, that we would be looking at having this as individuals looking for the transit within the area, given the location to the Lougheed B line and walking distance to the Maple Ridge Transit Exchange.
Thank you, Wendy. Just to expand a little bit on that, is that council, you'll be aware that we're coming forward with a parking review of our parking bylaw in the new year. And one of the things we're looking at is to see if we would expand parking requirements and change the parking numbers relative to suites and that. You know, within the central business district, which is a smaller area within the town center, we only require 1.1 stalls per unit. This is just outside of that area, so they have to actually apply the universal standard, which is 1.7, which is quite a bit of a difference. It's really, in my opinion, not necessary any longer. We should probably be looking at reducing it within our entire town center to the 1.1. We now have the bus line, the R3 and that. So we're going to be coming back to you in the new year with some information on how parking may change in the town center. And of course, you may have different ideas to reduce them further. And we'll be talking about that. So this is really a site in the town center that should be at a lower parking rate, in my opinion, but the bylaw is as what it is. And so they are providing the cash in lieu to meet the bylaw requirement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Youssef, do you have any other questions?
No, ma'am. Mr. Goddard answered it perfectly and actually gave me the heads up that now this is what we're going to be moving forward towards. So I very much appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions of clarification.
Thank you. So I'm not seeing any other speakers. Nope. So I'll call the vote to move it forward. Councillor Dozy, you have to vote, please. You can't, okay. All right. So it's carried unanimously. All right, moving on to 4.5.
The next item on the agenda is item 4.5, application 2022-304-RZ for 20644 Dewdney Trunk Road, site-specific text amendment. Staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
Okay, good morning.
Good
Actually, it's
afternoon,
afternoon now.
Madam Chair and Committee. This application here is on an area that's designated commercial. It's currently zoned CS1 commercial. There's a typo saying single detached residential there. It's 1.3 hectares in size, the site, and it's 3.2 acres in area. Proposed use is a group child care center. This is a site located in Dooney Trunk Road that includes the Keg property. So there are several other commercial units in the former Shooters Pub site. It's the designation of commercial in the OCP. And there's the site there with the different uses in the large building to the center right or east of the site and the large parking lot on the west and to the south of the site. So basically, this is a minor text amendment to amend the bylaw for this site to allow a group childcare facility on the subject property, supported and allowed under the general commercial land use designation in the OCP. And the area is also supported for flexible employment under the Lougheed Transit Corridor Area Plan. The recommendation is before you. Basically, it's a small text amendment to allow an additional use in the zoning on the site, Madam Chair and Committee.
Thank you very much. So a motion to move it forward, please. Councillor Eustace moving it forward. I need a seconder. Mayor Rumi. And any questions? I'm not seeing Councillor Youssef. I'm not seeing anybody else in chambers. Nope. So call the question. All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. 4.6.
The next item on the agenda is item 4.6, application 2022-370-RZ for zoning bylaw housekeeping amendments. Staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
Mr. Goddard.
Good afternoon, Council. I don't think we have a presentation on this one, or maybe we have a very short one. Yes, we do. Okay, this is just some periodic council will see housekeeping amendments to our zoning bylaw. And these come as a result of we find errors or some small changes or changes that occur that have result in some flaws in the bylaw with numbering. So the three types of what we're dealing with today is essentially housekeeping changes, and thus we're recommending no public hearing is needed because they're such a minor in nature. It could even be as small as punctuation. In one case, it's renumbering the bylaw because of amendments that were made earlier didn't quite follow the routine which we wanted. So we're correcting those, and there's some definition changes and some minor things, none of which are too worrisome. The one significant step back is a change we've made in the citing exceptions within the provision for the citing of buildings. Previously, we had in the bylaw an ability to vary to a certain point and then give them an architectural feature that would project beyond that. And so we're moving back because that provides flexibility for the designer to still add some interesting features on a building without having to get a variance for it. So they may still get a variance, but it's not going to be so restrictive any longer. They'll still have a bit of flexibility up to a foot and a half for like a chimney or a hutch or these sort of things that may occur on a house or a larger building. So there we are. So I think those are the three major categories you're seeing. I'm happy to ask any questions if you have any. And we're going to waive the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goddard. Motion to move it forward, please. I've got Councillor Dozy here and Councillor Carreras already. So, okay. And any questions? Not seeing any hands up. I don't see Councillor Youssef is good. All right. All in favor? And passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
And 4.7.
The next item on the agenda is item 4.7, application 2016-202-RZ for 20556 Dooney Trunk Road, RS1 to CD221. Staff are in attendance to present the application.
The application before you is the existing OCP is commercial. There's no change to it. The existing zoning is RS1, one family urban residential, and P4A, place of worship, institutional and educational. Proposed zoning is a CD 221 comprehensive development zone. The total site area that is subject to the rezoning is 1.08 hectares or 2.67 acres. The total development site is the whole site is the one I just said. The total development area, because there's a reduction, we're not rezoning the whole property, is 0.85 of a hectare or 2.10 acres. The proposal is a 576 unit apartment development and approximately 2,000 square meters of commercial space. Of the 576 apartment, 296 of them are purpose-built for rental. And this is the subject property before you. The small portion on the northeast side of 119th Avenue is not being rezoned. This is the official community plan context map. Oops. And the neighborhood context. To the south of the subject property that's being rezoned is Triple Tree Nursery. And the development proposal is to rezone to CD 221 to permit the development of 4 mixed use buildings with approximately 576 units in total, 296 of those being rental units within 2 buildings that is shown further in the presentation on the site plan, 280 market apartment units within 2 buildings, ground floor commercial space in each of the 4 buildings, opening to a central courtyard totaling the approximately 2,000 square meters of commercial space. There's underground parking with surface parking for the commercial units. The CD 221 zone includes a maximum building height of 6 stories and a maximum density of 2.36 FSR. The applicant is subject to the Community Amenity Contribution Program at a rate of $4,300 per market apartment unit for an estimated total of $1.2 million, or such rates applicable at third reading of the application. Rental apartment units are not subject to the CAC program, but exempt. This is the site plan showing the buildings, the 4 buildings and the central courtyard and the access points. The surface parking is only a small component of the parking. Under the 4 buildings are parkades. And this gives you a concept of the building elevations. And additional ones. And this gives you a concept of the landscaping of the development site. And before you are the recommendations.
Thank you very much. And I understand the applicants in the audience and available for questions only. Okay. So we're looking for someone. We're on, 4.7. Motion to move it forward. I think I'll look for hands right now. Councilor Carreras, Mayor Rumi, second. Any questions? I'll look for hands in the chambers while we're sorting out. Councilor Schiller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it seems that there are 4 buildings. The ones that are marked rental, I believe, were marked as number 3 and number 4 on the plans. Does that indicate that those buildings will be built later, or is the idea that it would all be built at the same time?
through the chair to Councillor Schiller, we haven't had those dialogues with the proponent on phasing of building at this juncture.
Okay. And this is just for my own education, but, you know, I imagine that typically with these developments, they are built one building at a time. Is there any like process in place within the city that prioritizes the rental ahead of the market?
Through the chair to Councillor Schiller, as part of this rezoning, we haven't included that as any sort of conditions. And through our building permit approval process, I'm not aware of any requirement of that. But with regard to your question about building, I would give the opportunity for the proponent to address how built, because this is such a large build and with the underground parking, how that would possibly occur.
Yeah, come up to the podium, Mr. Biskey.
Thank you very much. Wayne Biskey from Biskey Architecture. Yeah, we haven't really determined yet the phasing of the project, but generally, probably for a project this size, it makes sense. Similar to Brickwater, where they did it in 2 phases, where they built the underground parking in 2 phases, and then they built the towers on top of that in 2 phases. That is likely what would happen here. It really depends on how they're able to successfully secure their financing for construction. So, yeah, so it hasn't been determined yet.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Mayor Rumi.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked last time. There's lots of apartments here. Would the proponent be able to speak to the plans for car charging or bike storage?
Through the chair to Mayor Rooney, as part of our, they're required to do the conduit infrastructure to provide it. And are you looking for the proponent to speak to the UV charging stations?
They're here, so yes, please.
Thank you very much for the question. I think we have something in the range of maybe 30 that are already designated, but we are going to provide the conduits. But just as a bit of information, we're finding the market now is driving the requirement for electric vehicle charging stations. And so that's sort of leaping ahead of what many councils are looking for. The people who are buying these units are saying, we want these things. And so the developers are responding, saying we're putting them in. So for some of the buildings, for example, we're doing 100% electric vehicle charging stations. So anyhow, I don't know if that helps.
Sure, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And anyone else on the speakers list? No, Councillor Youssef is good. Okay, so we'll call for the vote now. And everyone's all in favor. Thank you very much. So now we're moving on to 4.8.
The next item on the agenda is item 4.8, application 2021-233-RZ for 20383 Osprey Street, RS1 to R1. Staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair and Committee, subject application located at 2033 Osprey Street is an area that's designated single family and compact residential under the Hammond Area Plan. The current zoning is single detached residential RS1 and is proposed to be rezoned to R1 single detached low density urban residential. on the total site area right now of approximately 0.22 acres, and 2 lots are proposed. This is a subject site at the corner of Melville and Offspring Street. So the subject property on the area plan land use designation map with the single compact and residential designation on the site and all around. And this is a subject property here on the orthophoto. And the development proposal is to rezone to R1, single detached low density urban residential, to permit a 2-lot subdivision. Both lots would be 420.6 meters after the lane dedication to the rear of the site. The minimum lot size in the R1 zone is 371 square meters. As noted before, the Hammond area plan supports this rezoning, and due to the proximity of the railway to the east, there would be a sound attenuation covenant required based on an acoustical report provided by the applicant. A portion of the property is within the floodplain going down towards southwest, so there'll be a geotechnical report required to address the flood construction level and be registered on title, and all parking could be accommodated in this 2-lot subdivision. These are the proposed building envelopes, with the buildings fronting onto Melville Street and Offspring Street, which currently is the front, would become basically an exterior side, and the lane is to the east between the subject properties and the railway. There's also a proposed lot variance that would be required due to the road dedication at the back. If the application was to proceed to completion, it'd be reducing the lot depth from 24 to 23 meters to accommodate the lane dedication. The lots are about 6 meters over the minimum lot size width of 12 meters right now. So the lots are more than the 371 square meter minimum. Just this lot variance width is proposed. And the recommendations are on the screen and in your reports, Madam Chair and Committee.
Thank you very much. And could I have a motion to move it forward, please? Moved by Councillor Carreras, seconded by Councillor Schiller. And on the speakers list, I have Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Much like my colleagues, I'm plagued with all kinds of electronic bits, including not being able to retrieve my notes or be actually able to view the application on my device. It's just been one of those things where it keeps flashing and going back to the very first front page of today's agenda. So I gave up on that. Through the chair to staff, when I'm looking at this application, if memory serves me correctly, because I don't have the information in front of me now, it is in a floodplain, but yet we're going with underground parking. So how do we reconcile that? And do we depend on site-specific geotechnical reports to then enable us to do so, or within the floodplain? Or are we able to simply say, since this isn't a floodplain, we are unable to have underground parking, or we are able to have underground parking? Just needed clarification on that, Madam Chair.
Well, Madam Chair, through to committee, this is like a 2-lot subdivision. The building envelopes are shown on the plan. There's no specific plan for underground parking. The parking would be off the lane to the rear and will likely be at ground level. If it were to be, we don't have plans for the house. If they were to be underground, then it would not be subject to flood construction level being parking, but that's not in the proposal to have it underground.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I can recall off by hand. I'm sure if I have any further question, I'll be able to address them to staff through emails. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm not seeing any other, oh, sorry, there you are, Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is in regards to the floodplain as well. And this is just a more general question for my own understanding, but what type of level of detail of information do we have about that location within the floodplain? Is it just that, yes, it's in a floodplain, or is there sort of more, we could expect this area to flood every 10 years or every 100 years? I'm just sort of trying to understand what kind of information is available about the specific location.
Madam Chair, through to Councillor Schiller, I'm not aware of the specific information for the site. It's part of the site is shown in the floodplain, but what is required is that we get a detailed geotechnical report as a condition of the subdivision site specific that will determine any flood hazards and the exact flood construction level.
Is that helpful? Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any other speakers. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Okay, good. All in favor of moving it forward? And we have Councillor Youssef as well, so it is carried unanimously. And we're on to item 4.9.
The next item on the agenda is item 4.9, application 2018-498-DP/DVP for 21640 124th Avenue, development permit, development variance permit. Staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
Okay. Mr. Goddard.
Thank you, council. Our last item this afternoon is a application for 3 units. One is a single family home and a duplex facing 124th. Council saw this application quite a while ago as a 4-plex, and it had a bit of a rough ride at the public hearing. So the applicant took the project back, decided to create just a single family home on the property to the south and a duplex on the north, so a total of 3 now. It's a triplex in a sense, but it's broken up. This is an odd lot in the sense it has 2 frontages, 2 front yards. So each home faces a front yard, one to the south and one to the north, of course. So the duplex is facing a much busier road than on Manor, and the home now is designed to fit in more with the neighborhood, which is of a similar height and size and scale. The building to the north is a bit larger, but it is on a busier road, does not have such intimate neighbors as the one to the south. It's a good example, I think, of infill housing in a neighborhood that is established on the south end. And you'll see more and more of these types of infill proposals coming forward. It's in our housing action plan, of course, trying to densify intelligently in older neighborhoods, but sensitively as well. So that's form and character the building has tried to mimic and at least be more in character and massing and scale with the existing homes on the south. Again, it's urban residential. It's moving to a ground-oriented form in 3 units. It's about 1/4 acre in size, 3 units. You see the site there. You can see how compact it is, but 124th is a major road, and Manor, of course, is very private, so the single family home will fit well. We do not have a normal cul-de-sac here. It's just the way the neighborhood developed, but there is certainly enough room for a driveway and a new home frontage to the south. Urban designation throughout the area. You're not going to see apartments. You're not going to see townhomes in the area, but you may see more proposals to create either 2 lots out of 1, 2 lots out of 3, or duplexes and that. So that's kind of where we're going to talk to you in the future about infill options in existing neighborhoods. This shows the neighborhood now. So essentially it's 3 units, 1 3-bedroom unit to the duplexes to the north and the larger home, 4 bedrooms to the south. This shows the layout of the site. The 2 homes are on your right and the 1 home facing Manor Avenue is on the left. Typical traditional 2-car garages on that home to blend in with the neighborhood. The one to the north is a bit of a different arrangement. Again, we're struggling to add more density to these smaller lots. We have 2 indoor parking stalls, 1 for each unit, as well as an outdoor parking stall in the front yard. And then they'll have to maneuver to get out onto 124th. But each home is required under the bylaw to have 2 parking stalls, and they've managed to achieve that here. What's interesting, they have a common sort of shared courtyard in the middle. These aren't single family forms, they're multifamily. So there is a large courtyard between the homes that they can share and use, and as well as their own private decks as well. Here's the landscaping plan showing the details of it, essentially front yard planting, as well as that courtyard being enhanced with play area, as well as privacy screening and such. These are the elevations of the home. The duplex is, of course, on the top with the 2-car garage there, 1 on each side for each unit. You'll see each one has separate doors and access. They were designed to try and mimic single family home form, but they each have a front door, which is good. The rear elevation, and this home on the south is much more traditional looking in a sense. It's a 2-story home with a pitched roof, 2.5 stories in form, and more of a country style, heritage style. There are some variances required because it is an existing lot and the zone requires typically a wider lot. We can't accommodate it, but we certainly want the density. So we have to give them a slight variance to the width of the existing lot. There's no way to gain any more land, of course. And then, of course, the front yard setbacks are reduced slightly on 124th to 6 meters from 7.5, which is typical. Thank you.
Thank
Here's
you,
a bit more
Mr. Goddard.
details if you're interested in it, but that's it.
All right, can I have a motion to move it forward, please? Moved by Counselor Youssef. Seconded by Mayor Rumi. And any questions? I'm not seeing anyone. Everyone's good. Okay, all in favor? And it's unanimous.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. All right. So now we're going to community forum. I'm going to turn it over to Madam Clerk so she can outline the criteria for community forum.
Participants in the community forum are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak to council. A second opportunity may be provided once all speakers in the queue have had an opportunity to speak. The total time allotted for community forum is 15 minutes. If you wish to inquire about additional opportunities to address council, please contact the corporate officer. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin your comments. For members of the public attending the meeting online who would like to speak during community forum, please register as a speaker by clicking on the microphone icon in the One Meeting portal and keep your camera on during your comments.
Okay, thank you. There is no one, well, there is one person online, but I don't. No, okay, there's no one on. Everyone's staff or council, and there isn't anyone in the audience. So a motion to adjourn. Okay. So I'm going to just say we're adjourned. Thank you very much for your patience. It's a bit of a challenging meeting today. So are we, we're not till 2?
2 o'clock.
Okay,
That's because we have.
right, okay. All right.